Welcome to the Mary Sue TED Talk.
Wait, we're not playing a board game?
We're doing a TED Talk.
It should be a med talk because it's a Mary Sue educational dialogue.
They will let anyone have a TED Talk these days.
Izzy, what's your joke?
Or is it?
Today our discussion will be how to make a Mary Sue. We chose a really bad color for this.
In my defense, it looked really good on my laptop.
It looked great on our laptop. So let's start with talking about what a Mary Sue is. First off, the term Mary Sue is actually a derogatory term in fandoms.
No shocker there.
It basically means it's an avatar, an author avatar. There's a lot of actually there is a lot of discussion about where Mary Sue starts and if they actually can exist in canon, and it can actually become really complicated. However,
Mary Sues are only female.
if they're only female,
males can be counted.
if they're only poorly written characters in fan fiction,
Like Harry Potter?
yes. Well, Harry Potter's not a fan fiction.
Well, there's a lot of bad Harry Potter fanfiction.
There's a lot of bad Harry Potter fan fiction. Anyways, but for our sakes, today we're only going to be talking about Mary Sue characters that are an avatar, an author avatar in fan fiction. This term actually comes from a Star Trek fan fiction. It was a parody called A Trekkie's Tale. It was making fun of all of the fan fiction written by females. It was Lieutenant Mary Sue was what they named the main character, and she was considered annoying because it was a parody. She was in love with Spock or Captain Kirk. It changes. It's both. It's both.
She was too
It's always
perfect.
both.
That was the
She was too perfect, and the plot centralized around her, even though she wasn't a main character. So basically, a Mary Sue is your idealized version of the author, whoever is writing this fan fiction. And of course, a lot of times, and in this case for the Mary Sue game, it's an original character.
It can be a character from the show, as we've seen on our game show. Sometimes people take the main character and they like to make that Mary Sue, make them more perfect than they normally are, make them more idealized, and that's their Mary Sue.
And you'll see this as an example a lot in Avengers fan fiction in the MCU. A lot of people will take the character Darcy Lewis, for example, and they'll give her extra traits like that aren't necessarily in canon, but they've been accepted in fanon,
Yeah.
like baking.
All of her Twitter stuff.
She's
always
a
like
social media. She teaches Captain America about Twitter. That's in every Darcy Lewis Avengers fanfiction. So let's go ahead and go over some checklists, points that you will want to make sure are in your Mary Sue. First, you're going to need a dramatic backstory.
Should be something sad, like being an orphan, or, running away from home. Something very dramatic.
Or your parents.
Yes. The worse, the better.
The worst, the better. Yes. Then they will have either unusual hair color, unusual eye color, or some weird exotic name. Personally, when it comes to names, I don't even try to bullshit it. Like, this character is me. Her name is Robin. It's always Robin.
Well, Tauntaun never names her character Tauntaun. It's always something else.
Lauren is always Laura.
Laura. It's classy. It's subtle.
Yes. And so a lot of times the Mary Sue character can look like yourself and have just like a weird name, like your idealized name. Or they can have traits that you wish you had.
Like blue hair.
Who doesn't want blue hair? They will also tend to lack any realistic or at least story relevant character flaw. This is where they get the rep for being too perfect.
They're always really nice, they're really friendly, they never seem to have a bad day, no bad hair days, they always look just right all the time.
They just so happen to know codes, like coding or like how to make a bomb or whatever's relevant to the story.
Or like just pick up skills immediately if they don't already know it.
Oh yeah, it's like I need to teach you this. I learn it very fast. 1 hour I mastered the skill that usually takes people 10 years to learn.
And we cover that. And a lot of times those skills that they master aren't really something that any other characters within canon will commonly have. It'll always be like a rare skill that no one else has except for the Mary Sue character.
Convenient plot development.
Everyone loves them.
Bella Swan's a great example of this.
Even the villains. The villains are like, she's annoying. Damn it, I just can't hate her. She's too compassionate, too nice to hate. Then they tend to have one kind of quirky trait that should make them annoying, but it actually just makes them more endearing.
Again, usually plot relevant, such as they're clumsy and happen to fall into situations.
Which actually is something you see a lot in romantic comedies.
Yeah.
True.
You have the lead female character who's smart, driven, blah, 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 major executive. But the reason men don't want to date her is she's clumsy.
Yeah.
Seriously, we've all seen that movie multiple times. So let's get into some basic tips for creating your Mary Sue character. First thing you want to do, figure out what fandom you're doing this Mary Sue for, right? Of course. Step one. Figure out if it's in canon or if there's some kind of alternate timeline. For example, say it's in the Arrow universe. It diverges after season 3. So season 4 doesn't exist.
Or you could be really crazy and be like, I want to do high school AU or college AU, even though this never happens in canon. So you could go really extreme if you wanted.
Yep. And then, of course, sort of similar, but timeline in the canon. So if it takes place in between episodes or before seasons or before books, depending on what medium you're going for.
Yeah, or if it's like going exactly along with the plot and the Mary Sue is just always there in the background.
Next, you need a character name. And this is where you get into the names that can either be exotic or just straight up your own name. Like, don't be afraid. It's you. It's you, your idealized self. Then you need your dramatic backstory. And I always like to choose a love interest.
Yes, she does. Very much so. Every Mary Sue starts out with Robin being paired with somebody.
Of course. Why else wouldn't? Why would it not? And then you'll want to figure out how they fit into canon, how they relate to the other characters around them.
Are they a sibling, family to somebody? Are they a childhood best friend?
A lot of times you'll see the Mary Sue character, if they're not the love interest for the main character, it's because they're a secret sister or a cousin or someone else that makes them related to the main character or the author's favorite character. Here's an example of Lauren's Mary Sue character.
I stand by her.
So this one was for X-Men Evolution. It takes place in canon several years after the show ends. So all of the characters are now in their 20s.
When did you make this?
When I told her to 3 months ago. Her name, again, is Laura. So her backstory is that she's a nerdy, plain girl with brown hair and glasses. She grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. She successfully hid her mutant powers from everyone until the fan fiction starts. She was thrown out of her house when she was outed by mandatory DNA testings done at the small local college. And so she's now on the run. And her love interest is Rogue.
So was Chicago the musical the whole reason you picked Chicago?
I think it takes place vaguely in Chicago, or like around there. Doesn't it? It's like vaguely like up north somewhere.
I mean, X-Men Evolution and all X-Men take place in New York, in like Manchester, New York. Is that a place? Is that actually, or Winchester? I don't know.
I'm getting a yes.
Yes, Manchester, New York. I think in X-Men Evolution, Kitty Pryde's from Chicago.
Okay, that's why I did it.
Okay.
Go with that, Lauren.
So here are some ideas on, we have 2 ways that you can kind of structure the main plot for your story. The first one is just by doing a story that's independent of canon plot. It's either outside or beyond. For that, we recommend just following the 5 steps of storytelling. So you have your introduction and setting, your rising action, your climax, falling action, and then resolution. Something that might be a little bit easier, depending, honestly, this could actually be more difficult, is creating a canon that amends with the presence of the Mary Sue. So basically you follow each episode and you make key changes to the plot and dialogue based on your Mary Sue.
A fix-it fic.
A fix-it. And then what's difficult about that is seeing how it all piles up until you're 7 episodes in and you're like, someone dies or is supposed to die.
But they're my love interest, and I don't want to kill them.
Exactly.
Speaking from experience here, Robin?
You actually took that out of this PowerPoint, okay?
Actually, I've seen your deadly class at AU.
Yeah, that was in here.
Oh, whoops.
That's what the 3 slides you took out was my deadly class fan fiction.
You should have brought the PowerPoint.
You're welcome.
All right. So, of course, for the Mary Sue game, you only have 5 minutes to tell your story.
That's way too long. That's way too much stuff, that last slide, to try to do in 5 minutes. Please, please don't.
Though I do recommend going through that so you can at least figure out what your main points are. It always helps to flesh it out and then be like, this is our concise story. Or I just always overwrite.
You overwrite.
I overwrite. I'm sorry.
I underwrite in that I don't write.
You think of it in the car right here?
I think of it when I'm sitting down.
So here are some tips that we came up with for competing in the Mary Sue game and applying your Mary Sue character. First, you're going to want to introduce your character and your backstory. Then you're going to make your canon amendments. For example, let's say you're doing a Sons of Anarchy fan fiction.
Oh my god.
I actually don't have one.
That's
But
a lie.
that is a lie.
That's a dirty lie.
Dirty lie.
Lie.
Why are y'all so mean to me?
Because I love you.
So my canon amendment for Sons of Anarchy would be, hey, this really racist town doesn't exist in California. It's in Texas, obviously. So any kind of thing that just is not canon, but for the sakes of your fan fiction, now is.
Yeah, this is where you justify any sort of crossovers or deaths that you want to undo or anything like that.
Then you're gonna want to introduce your main conflict, but keep it simple. Our judges aren't very smart.
We're really not.
I'm bad at following things.
Okay, it's hard to listen to a story for 5 minutes and keep track.
It is. It really is. And then you got to take notes and put them all in different categories for scoring. It's harder than it looks.
It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Mary Sue Game is now looking for new judges. At me on Twitter. So you'll want to have 3 to 5 plot beats. That can include significant action, change of scenery, important dialogue.
Things you think are really important to the story that you want to expand upon.
Basically the reasons you made this fic.
I usually try to do you think of your main conflict, think of 1 to 2 scenarios that would lead up to that conflict, and then think of a final scenario after that conflict happens. So wrapping everything up.
Of course, that leads us to our next point. Resolve the conflict.
Please resolve the conflict.
Please.
That is
Pretty
nice
please.
to have that in the story.
What I recommend is if you do have a fan fiction, a Mary Sue fan fiction that is complex and maybe multiple pages long, think about just doing a chapter 1.
Yeah.
You can still have a conflict and resolution within chapter 1. Maybe it's just you find out your character is the princess.
Or they just bump on a train or something and you meet a main character and you don't really get into the main plot of what you wanted to do, but they've met now.
And so then you can end with, and then they go on their journey.
Yeah.
You can leave it open-ended. Also, since this is a Mary Sue game, you have a random trope that you have to include into your fan fiction. So include it.
Electric trick ya.
And as I mentioned before, our judges are kind of stupid.
We're dumb.
You need to
Make
really
it
obvious.
obvious.
These characters are lesbians.
You just need to just state that up front because we
These characters were forced to share a bed.
B's character cuts his hair emotionally.
And it signifies a dramatic change.
I believe when I had to do that, I not only like really clearly was like, oh, she looks something weird and cuts her hair. I think I told exactly what it signified.
You did. Yes, you did. You did. All right. And of course, our judging criterias.
Ooh.
So the first one, of course, is originality. Then your adherence to canon, personal life details, overused tropes, and if you want to go for it, some squad inclusions. Get us in there.
Try to make personal life details a little bit more obvious, especially if we don't know you personally.
That is a good idea.
Because just sometimes it's hard to be like, wait, oh yeah, I think that's something that they do in real life. And it's hard to give you credit for it if we don't know you very well.
Yeah, so include something that is definitely your favorite hobby. If you want to tell us that's a personal life detail, do it.
We're stupid. Be obvious.
Be obvious.
You can hint, nudge us.
Yes, that works really well.
And adherence to canon, of course, it's a fan fiction, so it's not going to be every detail. We're not going to be like, oh, Harry's eyes are not the right color.
No, it's more like, do you do things how canon would do it? Like, Dumbledore's being vague again. That's very much adhering to canon.
Yeah, we generally do more kind of general plot beats or general kind of themes.
You want
when we do that.
to feel like it's in the universe. Like the characters are the characters. And of course, because it's fan fiction and things get done over and over and over again, we never get sick of reading the same fan fiction.
That is very true.
Love a trope.
We love a trope.
Or an AU.
Or an AU. Yeah, let's challenge for future competitors. Get some more AUs in there. But let's talk about originality, because even though that is something, one of the great things about fan fiction is how it twists a lot of commonly used tropes. And there is, even if you're reading the same characters with the same tropes, there are 12 of them and they all feel different. Okay. And so let's go ahead and give out some other of our tips. Since this is a Mary Sue, of course, you can follow the Robin route and have whoever you want as your love interest. It doesn't matter. Have fun with it. This is for you.
Or you can follow the Amanda route of, I don't break up my favorite ships. So there's the one side of love that my Mary Sue has. But, will never come to play because I don't break up my favorite ships.
Hey, you know what? That's unrequited loving. That's a trope. If you think you can be more self-indulgent, do it. The whole point of a Mary Sue is this wish fulfillment. The point is to put yourself in Hogwarts, to put yourself in Star Wars, to be that character that you always wanted to be. Also, keep it simple, stupid. They're stupid.
Again, we are stupid. I don't think we iterated this enough tonight.
And of course, have fun.
That's the most important one. It should be fun making your Mary Sue. It shouldn't be like, oh, I don't want to make this.
Don't be worried about what other people are going to say. The whole point of a Mary Sue, making a Mary Sue is really personal. Yeah. I have 12. I have more than 12.
You have a lot more than 12, Robin.
And if I ever decide to post them, I will. But they sit on my drive, and every week I email them and are like, read my Mary Sue I wrote. And you'll hate it.
She does. Yep. She really does.
Yeah, it's weird to be on a Robin's Mary Sue mailing list.
If you want to join that, email me.
Okay, it's better than the picture of her crush.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
I love you, Robin.
You just constantly want to start a zine.
Pictures upon pictures.
Why do you think I have a podcast and this game show? But thank you for joining us on our TED Talk. Do y'all have any last minute notes for creating a Mary Sue? Any tips?
Also keep in mind that you don't want to do anything that might be triggering to people, especially on this game show.
We are
Your
public.
Fan fiction is fine because you can put tags and warnings, and people who don't want to read that or hear that can avoid it. But this is a public place. It's a television show with.
We're on prime time and YouTube.
So just be considerate.
Yeah. Yeah. People have been pretty good about that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't
for the
had a
most part.
problem, but
We haven't had any problems, but.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps us up for the Mary Sue game TED TED Talk. Thank you.
Let's talk.
I wanted to play a board game though. I brought one. It's over there.
We can go home and play it.
Okay.
Thank you.